Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MFC Middleweight Jason Zentgraf. Jason, how are you?
Doing pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Jason, you got a fight coming up May 10th at MFC 37. How's training been going for the fight?
Training's been pretty good. You know, I've been hitting at least 2 or 3 practices a day. Yeah, my cardio's feeling pretty solid. I'm training at a new gym now, and my grappling partners are a lot better versed than my old grappling partners. And yeah, there's a lot more pro fighters at the new gym, so I'm in a better place, and I'm pretty excited. So I feel good, and should be a good fight.
Mm-hmm. Where exactly are you training at now, and who are some of the guys that you're training with?
I'm training at the Dog Pound here in Missoula, Montana. A couple of guys who I train with. Probably the only one that you might recognize is Lloyd Cupcake Woodard. He fights for Bellator.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, he's one of my training partners, and then there's a bunch of other guys who are my size and bigger that can actually, push me. At my old gym, I didn't really have anybody my size. I was the biggest guy there, so yeah. Got some big guys to lay on top of me. One of them's like 300 pounds, my good buddy John Ragsdale, and yeah, he's fun to try and get off when he's on mount.
Jason, you live in Montana. What exactly is the MMA scene in Montana like? Because we don't really hear much about it.
Yeah, not many people do. A lot of really good fighters come out of here. Roy Nelson, he fought here in in Butte, but it was in Montana. Josh Barnett, when he was training for his Pride fights, he was training here in Missoula. Missoula has a lot of really good wrestlers, and Montana in general has a lot of really good wrestlers throughout high school. One of the guys I train with, he's like a 4-time state champ wrestler, but, nobody in the MMA community knows him as, the wrestler. Most people just know his MMA career, so a lot of the amateur fights, if you go to see a card here, is predominantly wrestlers, so they'll have all these unbelievably great and talented wrestlers, but they're not, really known for their striking, so there's a really good stable of wrestlers here, so a lot of the guys are really tough, and it's a lot more of an amateur scene here in Montana. Not that many pro fights. There usually be 1 or 2 pro fights on a card, but for the most part, it's just amateur fighters who pretty much everybody has that wrestling background, and then have that puncher's chance.
Why exactly aren't there that many pro opportunities in Montana? Is it something where promoters feel that they're just such a small group of pros that there isn't much of a draw? They can't put on good quality fights, or is it something where the promoters don't want to pay guys to fight? What exactly is the reason there isn't that much pro opportunity in Montana for MMA?
Well, I think it really stems from the socioeconomic status of most people in Montana. When you have a card here in Missoula, people aren't going to pay more than $10 and $15 for a ticket, maybe 20. In a lot of places, especially in Canada, they're paying $50, $60 for a ticket, and that's normal. Where in Montana, they don't really have that expendable income the way they can just spend that much on a ticket. So the promoters aren't making as much, and then they're less inclined to, pay, even just, a 1-on-1 pro. It's going to be hard for him to pay 5 and 5. $1,000 is going to make a big difference when he's only charging $10 a head for tickets, and it's smaller cities. While there is a fairly strong MMA following, it's still hard to pack more than 2,000 people at the most into a venue, and 2,000 is pretty solid for a Montana show.
Now, I saw an article, I can't remember when it was a couple months ago. I saw an article where the writer of this article was talking about the MMA scene in Montana, and it was an opinion piece. So basically, his opinion was that if you want to succeed in the sport, if you're an MMA fighter, that you have to leave Montana to do that, because the pro opportunities, the fighting locally, that just isn't an option. And he said that there was something about there's not that many gyms that have the good quality fighters. What's your take on that? Is it something where you see in your career that you will be able to stay, train, live in Montana the rest of your career, or do you think that eventually you will have to move somewhere else?
Yeah, actually, that's something, a dilemma that I've been wrestling with lately. Eventually I'm going to have to move to a bigger city where there's a lot more guys my size who are very talented. As far as, the number of fighters here. We actually have quite a few pro fighters and some really tough guys, but they don't fight in Montana. Mm-hmm. They go, to Seattle, up to Canada, down to Vegas or LA to fight. So they're getting paid pretty well, and they're all training here in Montana. So we have some really tough fighters here, but they're going to be fighting. Like I said before, you're not going to make any money if they fight here in Montana. So, I think to succeed, you really need to be training with the best guys in the world. And while we do have very, very tough MMA fighters here in Montana, whether it's me going and, spending a week or two at another gym, renowned gym, or actually moving down there permanently, I think I'm going to have to make a change. But for right now, I'm very comfortable where I'm at. There's some very good black belts here in Missoula, and some very good boxers as well, wrestlers, of course, and a couple of very good Muay Thai fighters. My old coach was, national ranked undefeated Muay Thai fighter over in Japan, and I think it's more just that people don't hear that much about Montana. It's such a small place that they don't really realize how tough the guys actually are until they come here. Because I remember going to Team Quest, and then it was kind of during Christmas, so there wasn't, there was Pat Healy and a lot of the good fighters, but Chael, Usual Kami, they weren't there. And I remember sparring with everybody, and I had so much better striking than any of the guys there. It was ridiculous. But, they're predominantly a wrestling gym as well, so it's kind of, their specialty is wrestling and grappling. But, it was a good ego boost to, go to a big gym and actually, whoop up on these guys that I've seen on TV.
Mm-hmm. Sure, definitely. Now, Jason, May 10th, you're going to be taking on Luke Harris. What are your thoughts about him as an opponent?
He's a tough fight for me. He's got very good judo, very good jiu-jitsu. He's got a black belt in both. So he's got a very strong core, but the problem with his style of judo and jiu-jitsu is it's very technical and not very explosive. He's very strong, though, and he commits to his moves. He doesn't, pull back on anything. He really drives through, but he's not, he's not quite as explosive as most of the fighters out there. And as far as judo goes, there's only so many judo throws that incorporate very well into MMA. A lot of them require a certain grip on the gi, things like that. And as far as like a live scenario, you really need these kind of like wrestling takedowns. And there are a couple of judo takedowns, but I've been training my defense against the most effective ones, and I feel confident in my clinch because it's going to get there eventually. And as far as the jiu-jitsu, it's very, very good, and I train with some very good jiu-jitsu guys as well. I feel confident in it. Obviously, I'm not going to, shoot in and try and take it to the ground. If I get there, so be it. I'm not going to, be afraid to be on the ground with him. My jiu-jitsu is very unique, and I catch a lot of people off guard, so I'm comfortable there, but my striking is feeling so crisp that I really want to capitalize on that.
Mm-hmm. In this fight, where do you see the fight going? Do you see it, being on the ground? Do you see it, being everywhere, a little bit of stand-up, a little bit of ground, a little bit of clinch? Because there's a lot of people who go back and forth on where this fight could go. A lot of people think, you guys are both so good and so well-versed at the submissions and transitioning and everything, positions, all that kind of stuff. People think, this could turn into a grapple fest, but then there's that other group of people who think that it'll just cancel out and will just be treated to all stand-up. So where do you see this fight going?
That's a very good question, and I think both sides have good points. It could go either way. If we were striking, and for example, I tag him with a solid shot, and he comes in and clenches and takes it to the ground. That's probably where it's going to be for the rest of the fight, is on the ground. I'd love it to just be a stand-up war. I mean, that's a lot more fun to watch. Me as a fan of MMA, I love jiu-jitsu, I love wrestling, but there's, very few guys who can make it very entertaining once it hits the ground, and if it can just stay a striking fight, I love it, and the fans would love it too. But I think the majority of this fight is going to be in the clinch. I think Luke's going to want to clinch with me, so, haymaker, get in, clinch with me, try and take it to the ground. I'm pretty well versed in my Muay Thai in the clinch, so hopefully I'll be able to do some damage there, stay on the outside, and like I said before, if it goes to the ground, so be it. But I think the clinch is really going to determine whether it does go to the ground or we stay on our feet and separate and keep the stand up. So, yeah, it's a good question. I wish I had a more definitive answer for you.
Sure, definitely. And he's so good on the ground, that's what people know him for. Is there a little bit, I know you said that you wanted to keep the fight standing and you want to put on a good show, and because people love the striking and you want to put on a good show for them, but is there a little bit of you that wants to see how good this guy is on the ground? Is there, a part of you that wants to test yourself against a guy who a lot of people consider an elite grappler? Is there a little bit of part of you that wants to see that?
Yeah, that's always in the back of my head, because obviously I'm confident, but I wouldn't say that I'm cocky. I wouldn't go in there and be like, oh, I tap him right away. I think it'd be a very good grappling match. I know there's some people who think that his level of grappling is far beyond mine, and I really don't believe that. I think it'd be a very closely contested match. Part of me does want to see that, but above anything else, I really want to put on a good fight. So I'd like to, get a lot of striking in there. But yeah, part of me does kind of want to see how I match up. And if we get there, it's one of those things where I'm not going to be afraid to get there. If we get there, all right, let's do it. It's crunch time. Let's see how we match up.
Mm-hmm. You said that you see this fight taking place in the clinch a lot. This fight's going to be in the ring. How much different is it fighting when you're fighting in the clinch from the cage to the ring? How much do you have to kind of alter the way you go about things fighting in the ring when you're pushed up? Because when you got the fence there in the cage, it's a lot easier to control people and push up. When you got the ropes, it kind of bounces off and the guy can escape a little bit easier. How do you go about with the different surface? How do you alter the way you go about and your movements and all that stuff when you're fighting in the ring?
Yeah, the main two things are corners and then the ropes. Like you said, on the ropes, they have a little bit more give, whereas the cage kind of pushes out and then stops. It doesn't really spring back, it has its limit. Whereas the ropes are, they're cable, but they do have some movement. They're pretty tight. I was very surprised, my last two fights, they're really tight. It's like leaning up against the wall. But, when you stick your butt out, it can go between the ropes and everything. So that's one thing that you got to be careful of. But with the clinch, that can hurt you. But if you can get them in the corner, that's a 90-degree corner. And that's a lot harder for him to get out of a 90-degree corner than, if there's a hexagon or octagon or whatever with many sides, that corner's not going to be as sharp. And it's going to be easier to turn him into the corner. Whereas in this, I really like how sharp those edges are. You can really pin him in the corner and work some elbows and knees in there. So I think that's going to be where a lot of the damage is. If it's on the ropes, then it's going to kind of be a dance. You're going to be swinging around and trying to find a corner or separate and get back to the center.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to step out of it and look at this fight from Luke Harris's point of view, what do you think his camp, his training partners, all those guys, what do you think they're telling him to do against you?
That's a good question. A lot of people don't realize that aspect of researching your opponent and thinking, what is he thinking? What does he know about me? I always Google myself and see what people can find out, see what fights they can see. And, pretty much all my amateur fights, or most of them, are on YouTube, but there's only about 2 of my pro fights that are on YouTube. Maybe a couple more, actually, now I think about it. But, what I think is his corner, his camp's probably going to say, he's got a puncher's chance, but his striking isn't that versed, when action is my strongest asset. Mm-hmm. Anybody with me, unless they're just a grappler and that's all we did, they're going to comment about how my striking was. And I think they're going to undersell that a bit, and then they're going to say, his takedown defense is all right. He's got a toss or two, but that's not his specialty. That, as long as you get in there, set up one of your judo throws, you'll be able to put him on his butt, and then go to side control, step over the head, and get that Kimura. He goes for that every single time. And while he's obviously versed in many other submissions, that's the one he's very good with. That's his bread and butter, it seems like. Mm-hmm. So that's probably going to be his go. And I just got to, keep my head on a swivel, make sure that I avoid that. And if it does go to the ground, keep an eye out for that, that stepping over the head, over the Kimura. But, he's a black belt. You don't get a black belt head and arm choke or anything like that. So, I just need to be on my toes and make sure I keep an eye out for everything. And, his camp will probably tell him to throw a haymaker, close the distance, use that hip toss, get inside control, submit him. Obviously they have more moves than that, but that's going to be the general arc that I believe they're going to go through.
Now, you mentioned earlier about your striking. Why do you think that people underestimate your striking? Is it just because they look at your record, they see 7 wins, 7 by submission, they just look at that, or is it something where they just see you and all your fights that you're just getting it to the ground and submitting guys real fast, and you just seem so much better on the ground than your opponents? What do you think is the main reason why people don't give you enough credit for your striking?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is definitely, like you said, that all my wins are by submissions. So they're going to be like, well, he's definitely a submission guy. He's going to be looking for those submissions, whereas a submission is so definite. I've hit guys with huge shots, dropped them to their butt, but if their neck is out and you grab it, boom, it's over. So, I think that's going to be the first reaction. When somebody looks at my record and goes, 7-1, all submissions, he's probably just a jits guy. But, and then the other thing is, if you look at my last 2 fights in the MFC, my last fight against we did a little bit of striking, but pretty much he would throw a haymaker, get into the clinch, and then it was just a clinch fight, and then I threw the toss, and it was just ground fight. So you didn't even really get to see much of my striking at all. And then with my fight against Cody, my first fight in the MFC, he just came at me very aggressive. He just kind of to the wind, let loose, didn't keep his technique tight, just opened up and started throwing haymakers. And one thing that's very interesting that a lot of people don't really realize is in that fight, I only hit him with one knee, nicked him with an elbow, and then hit him with a lead hook backing up. And just from that, I cut him in 2 places, gave him a huge mouse under an eye, gave him another black eye. Like, I beat him up pretty bad with just 3 strikes. And, when I throw a strike, I make sure it does damage. There's no point of, babying it. I'm in there to cause a lot of damage. And I was on my heels pretty much the whole fight. I did drop him with 1 hook, a lead hook backing up, but, you didn't really get to see much of my striking. It's kind of one of those things with that fight. It's like, you got to brawl a striker. And vice versa, you got to strike a brawler. So yeah, that was his game plan. It didn't work out for him, but it didn't showcase my skills very much, which is fine. I love being the underdog. I love seeing on Twitter, people, who do you think is going to win this fight? And it's like, percent for me and 90% for Luke. Like,
right.
Well, oh well.
And definitely, you got to factor in for this fight that you're going up against a Canadian, and basically, I think he is from Edmonton, so you're going into his hometown. So, do you like that? Do you like kind of playing this sort of a villain role of going into somebody's hometown and trying to steal the show and rain on his parade?
Yeah, absolutely. Not because I'm in there trying to make anybody look bad from their hometown. I got a lot of respect for the guy. He's done a lot for the sport, but it's kind of one of those things where if you back a dog, then it's all go, it's all kill. I have nobody to impress in that crowd. If I'm sitting there getting booed, I just kind of nod. It's happened many times before. You just kind of nod and go, all right, boo me. Watch what happens. And you go out there, and then you get a lot of focus because it doesn't matter. You're not worried about anybody in the crowd. Everybody's against you. They're for this guy. And then, so you take all that energy, and a lot of people kind of turn it inward. No, they'll worry, this guy's got the hometown advantage, if you will, but I use that, and I put it right on him, and I say, I'm going to take all this energy that they're, this negative energy they're throwing at me, and I'm going to make him hurt that much worse. So it's different for everybody, but for me, it really fuels me. The more they boo and yell, the better I do. But, I fought hometown guys before, and they've cheered for me, especially in Canada. Everybody up there is, so nice and respectful that I don't think it'll be quite that bad, booing and stuff like that, but they definitely won't be cheering for me as loud as they will be for him, so I think it'll fuel me.
This will be your 3rd fight for MFC. Is this the last fight in your contract?
Yeah, that's the last fight in my contract. Hopefully, I'll sign another contract and get that title shot. There's whispers that if I beat Luke, that I will get that title shot. There was whispers about that with my last fight, though. So, at the end of the day, I just need to finish this contract strong. try to put him away, make a good showing, and show that I deserve a title shot. And I really want that strap. It's that's what I'm there for. I'm there to put on a great show. I love doing that, but I really need that. That title means a lot to me, and yeah, that's all I care about. And I need to get that.
Mm-hmm. Jason, on May 10th, how do you see the fight ending?
I think I'll be able to knock him out, and if not, I'll be realistic. Yeah, he could submit me. It could end that way, but I'm very confident in my striking, my clinch, and I believe I'll be able to put him away. No disrespect to him, but I believe I'll be able to put him away with my striking.
Jason, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you would like to thank, and is there anything you'd like to say to the fans?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd absolutely like to thank Moreware. They have been great, unbelievable with me. I'm wearing their compression shorts out to fight. Scrap Soldier, I'm a Beast Apparel. My managers at Big Fight Management, those guys are amazing. Fight Label, they've helped me out quite a bit. And yeah, to the fans, thanks so much. Love me or hate me, do what you gotta do. Root for whoever you got it, but as long as you enjoy my fight, that's all that matters to me. If you guys need to boo me when I'm fighting Luke Harris, so be it. I don't take it personally. I've booed people before when I've been in the stands. So, I love you all, and as long as you guys enjoy the show, that's all that matters to me. So, yeah, I love you all. Thanks a lot. Hit me up on Twitter at Jason Zentgraf. Jason,
thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it. Good luck May 10th at MFC 37 against Luke Harris.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you have a good day.